Our company, Apex Innovations, was my life's work. Mark and I built it from nothing. We were brothers, sharing every dream every late night. I was the visionary, he was the executor. We had created a multi-million-dollar empire, a testament to our unbreakable bond. I remembered the early days. We worked out of a tiny office, fueled by cheap coffee and grand ambitions. We celebrated every small win, commiserated over every setback. Our trust was absolute, a foundation stronger than any contract. Then subtle shifts began. Mark started holding meetings I wasn't invited to. He'd brush it off, just a quick chat, nothing important. I dismissed it as stress, the growing pains of a successful company. My trust in him remained unwavering. He grew more secretive. Key decisions, once a joint effort, were now made without my input. I felt a slight chill, but reasoned he was just taking more initiative. He was Mark. Partner, my friend, he wouldn't sideline me. The first real blow came with the Peterson account. A critical client meeting was inexplicably mishandled. Our proposal was late, incomplete. It undermined my department. I knew something was wrong but couldn't pinpoint it. I confronted Mark about Peterson. He looked me straight in the eye, calm as ever, and spun a tale of miscommunication, blaming a junior employee. He made me doubt my own observations. "Arthur, you're overthinking," he'd said, and I believed him, but the unease grew. I started noticing unusual financial transactions, strategic shifts that didn't align with our long-term vision. They were small, easily explained away, but a pattern was forming. I had no concrete proof, just a gnawing feeling. One day, Sarah, our longtime head of HR, stopped me. Her voice was low. "Mark's been different, Arthur. Be careful." She offered no details, just a look of concern. It was a vague warning, but it confirmed my growing dread. That night, I started a private journal. I documented every inconsistency, every peculiar incident. It felt paranoid, but I needed a record. The man I called my brother was becoming a stranger, and I needed to understand why. Then came the email, an urgent summons to a board meeting. No agenda, just a time and date. The air in the office felt heavy, charged. A cold chill settled over me. This wasn't just another meeting. This was a turning point. I walked into the boardroom. Mark sat at the head of the table. His smile was too wide. Other board members avoided my eyes. The air felt thick. This was not a normal meeting. Mark began to speak. His voice was calm, but his words were sharp. He listed false accusations, mismanagement, negligence, ethical breaches. Each word was a calculated lie. My stomach churned. I looked at the board members. People I had trusted. Their faces were blank. They nodded along with Mark's narrative. I was alone. The betrayal was real, a physical blow. A vote was called. It was unanimous. I was out. Security guards appeared. My access badge was taken. I was escorted from the building. The walk felt endless, every step a public shaming. The news hit fast. Founder ousted amidst scandal. The headlines screamed. My name was dragged through mud. They painted me as corrupt, incompetent. My reputation, my legacy, was being destroyed. I called my lawyer. We tried to fight back, but Mark had covered his tracks perfectly. Every document, every contract was ironclad. He had planned this for a long time. I was trapped. The bank froze my accounts. Company assets were tied up. My personal savings were gone. The house, the kids' college fund, everything was at risk. The cold reality of financial ruin set in. My wife, Sarah, held my hand. Her eyes were full of fear. The kids asked why we couldn't go to their favorite restaurant. I saw my failure reflected in their worried faces. It broke my heart. I spent nights replaying every conversation with Mark. His casual remarks, his sudden trips, his subtle manipulations, it all clicked into place. He had orchestrated this for months, maybe years. He weaponized our friendship. I sat in the quiet house, a shell of the man I once was. Despair was a heavy blanket. But beneath it, a tiny spark ignited. A cold, terrifying rage. Mark had taken everything. I would take it all back and more. The bank letters piled up. Our savings, once comfortable, were gone. I had to tell my wife we needed to sell the second car. We cut back on everything. Seeing her face, the kids' confusion was a fresh wound. This was the true cost of Mark's betrayal. Days blurred into weeks. I sat in silence, staring at walls. The company was my identity. Without it, I felt hollow. The man who built Apex Innovations was gone. An empty shell remained. Depression was a heavy cloak. Going out was torture. Whispers followed me everywhere. Friends avoided my calls. The public humiliation was a constant weight. It impacted my family too. My children heard things at school. I felt utterly isolated. I replayed every moment with Mark. Our shared dreams, the late nights, the absolute trust. How could he do this? The why gnawed at me. Was his greed always there, hidden beneath his friendly smile? I couldn't comprehend it. One evening, my daughter asked why I was always sad. Her innocent voice cut through the despair. I looked at my family, their future uncertain. A cold fire ignited in my gut. I had to fight back for them. I would not let him win. I pulled out the old journal. Every meeting, every email, every suspicious transaction, I wrote it all down. Dates, times, names. The details started to form a grim picture. I needed a clear record of his actions. It was clear now. Mark didn't just betray me, he weaponized our bond. He used my trust, my friendship, as a tool for his own ambition. Pure, unadulterated greed drove him. It was a calculated, cold act, a remorseless desire for power. I thought of a few old colleagues. Sarah from HR was one. David, our former head of logistics. I needed to gauge their loyalty. Their current feelings towards Mark. I would have quiet conversations, discreet questions. I needed to know who was truly with him. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. The small changes, the missed meetings, the strange decisions, a timeline of Mark's slow, insidious takeover. He had planned this for years. He was a master of psychological manipulation. It was all a trap. I was still broken, yes, but the despair had been replaced by something else. A terrifying calm. A cold resolve. I looked at the notes, the timeline of his treachery. He took everything, now I will take his everything and more. I began my quiet hunt. First, I looked at public company filings. Mark had changed the business structure. He moved things around, hiding assets in plain sight. It was a calculated move when I almost missed. The quarterly reports showed strange numbers. Expenses were up, but not for growth. Certain funds were diverted. It was subtle. But I knew our old system. He was bleeding the company slowly, and it was clear as day to my eyes. I set up a secure anonymous email, a burner phone too. I needed to reach out. There had to be others. Mark had wronged, people who saw the truth. This was my first step into the shadows. My first message went to Sarah. She had warned me before. I kept it vague, a simple question, are things truly different? I waited. The silence was heavy, but I knew she would understand the coded message. I thought of the old network. Mark was never good with IT security. I knew the backdoors, the forgotten access points. He wouldn't have patched them all. My intimate knowledge was now my weapon. Then a former junior accountant replied. He had been fired after asking too many questions. He sent me a spreadsheet. It showed payments to shell companies. Mark's name was on them. This was it. Concrete proof. The dossier grew. Every piece of information, every name, every date, I cross-referenced everything. My mind was no longer a victim's. It was a hunter's, cold, precise. Each entry was a step closer to his downfall. Another email came from David, our old logistics head. He offered to meet. He had been sidelined by Mark too. He knew where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking. I had found an unexpected ally. The despair was gone, replaced by a cold, burning purpose. I was not Arthur, the ousted founder. I was Arthur, the silent adversary. My mission was clear. My family's honor, my legacy, it would all be reclaimed. David gave me a hidden server off the main network, a backup system Mark used for his personal projects. I accessed it. There it was, a log of every illegal transaction, every bribe, and a single encrypted file. I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. This was the foundation. The encrypted file from Mark's hidden server was my blueprint. It detailed his operational quirks, his shortcuts, his blind spots. My revenge began with quiet taps on the keyboard, exploiting the legacy systems I built, small, untraceable acts of disruption. I created ghost errors, minor glitches in the inventory system, phantom network lags, unexplainable data corruptions. Nothing major, just enough to cause persistent headaches. Mark's IT team would chase shadows, wasting time and resources. Reports trickled back through my old contacts. Mark was frustrated. His managers were bickering, blaming each other for the unexplained operational hiccups. Suspicion was starting to fester among his team. My invisible hand was working. I reached out to my network of suppliers and logistics partners. Discreet calls, veiled suggestions. A critical shipment delayed here. A necessary resource subtly redirected there. Quiet chaos began to spread through his supply chain. Public perception was next. Anonymous whispers on industry forums. Small tips sent to minor blogs highlighting unusual operational delays at Apex Innovations. Nothing provable, just enough to sow seeds of doubt about Mark's leadership. Mark, blinded by his own arrogance, dismissed the issues. He blamed external market factors or worse, incompetent subordinates. He never once considered the possibility of an internal, unseen force. He was playing right into my hands. I refined my methods like a chess master. I studied Mark's reactions, anticipated his next moves, and adjusted my strategy. Every small setback he faced taught me how to hit him harder, more precisely next time. The psychological toll on Mark was becoming clear. He was growing more paranoid, snapping at his team, isolating himself. Key stakeholders, once loyal, began to distance themselves. His empire was starting to crack from within. There were moments of doubt, a whisper of moral conflict. Was this truly the path? But then I remembered my family's frightened faces, the humiliation, the financial ruin. Mark's betrayal was a cold, hard truth that solidified my resolve. I initiated a larger, yet still untraceable setback. A significant system failure that would halt a major project for days, costing him millions. It was a tremor, a warning. Mark's frustration would soon turn to genuine concern. The earthquake was coming. The encrypted file held everything. Years of Mark's deceit laid bare. Shell companies, diverted funds, illegal contracts. I packaged it all. My first target, the Securities and Exchange Commission. A simple, anonymous upload. The first domino was pushed. Next, I reached out to a few investigative journalists. Not big names yet, but hungry ones. I gave them just enough to pique their interest, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to Apex Innovations' hidden rod. The story would spread fast. The first headline hit, Apex Innovations under scrutiny, allegations of financial misconduct. It wasn't about Mark yet, but the company name was enough. Social media lit up. The whispers I started had become a roar. Stock market reacted swiftly. Apex Innovations shares plummeted. Legal challenges began to surface, class action lawsuits from disgruntled shareholders. Mark's empire, once so solid, was starting to crumble. I watched it all from a distance. Mark tried to deflect blame. He pointed fingers at former employees, at market volatility. But the evidence I leaked was too specific, too damning. Every piece tied directly to his personal accounts, his direct orders. And there was no escape. His board members, once loyal, began to abandon him. They saw the writing on the wall. His closest allies, the ones who helped him oust me, were now distancing themselves. The rats were leaving the sinking ship. My own story, carefully crafted, started to emerge. Anonymous sources close to the company's founder detailed Mark's insidious takeover. The public began to see the truth. My name, once tarnished, was slowly being cleared. I watched Mark's desperate attempts to mitigate the damage. A public statement that reeked of panic, a flailing attempt to sue a news outlet. Each move was clumsy, revealing his fear. He was losing control, and I savored every moment. Threats came vague and desperate. Through intermediaries, Mark tried to silence me, to buy me off, but I was always one step ahead. My planning was meticulous. His dwindling resources were no match for my cold resolve. The noose tightened. Every avenue Mark tried to escape was blocked. His company was in ruins, his reputation destroyed. He was cornered, facing the complete collapse of his empire. The terror on his face I knew would be profound. The final act was near. The news cycle was a frenzy. Apex CEO Mark Thorne indicted. The headlines screamed. My former partner, once untouchable, was now a public spectacle. Criminal charges, corporate fraud, embezzlement. The final hammer blow had fallen. He was facing years in prison. Apex Innovations, the company we built, crumbled fast. Its stock was worthless. Creditors swarmed. The whispers of bankruptcy became a roar. The empire Mark had stolen was now a husk, a monument to his greed. It was gone just like that. Then came the articles. Arthur Hayes, the true visionary. My name was cleared, not just restored, but elevated. The public saw me as the victim, the true founder. The truth, meticulously uncovered, had finally set my name free. I watched from a distance as Mark faced the cameras. His suit was rumpled. His eyes held a hunted look, stripped of his power, his wealth, his freedom. He was paying an unbearable price for his ruthless ambition. The image was stark, a complete reversal. I reflected on the arduous journey. The personal cost of revenge was heavy. I had transformed from a broken victim into a relentless architect of justice. The man I was before the betrayal was gone. A new, tougher version remained. One day in the courthouse hallway, our paths crossed. He looked up, our eyes met across the crowded space. There was no rage, no words, just a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He knew I was the true orchestrator of his downfall. A new sense of peace settled over me. True justice wasn't just about Mark's ruin. It was about reclaiming my own sense of self, my integrity. The weight that had crushed me for so long finally lifted. I felt whole again. My focus shifted back to my family. We spent more time together, simple things like dinners and walks. We rebuilt our lives, emphasizing the enduring values Mark had trampled upon. Our bond was stronger than ever. I was scarred, yes, but stronger. The past was a lesson, not a burden. I looked towards a future defined not by past grievances, but by the quiet satisfaction of ultimate vindication. The fight had changed me, but for the better. I stood at a crossroads. The darkness I navigated was behind me. The empire was gone, reduced to dust. But my spirit, once broken, was now unbroken. I chose a path of purpose, of quiet triumph. My story was not one of bitterness, but of unwavering resolve.